Hello, my name is Reinaldo Andrade Cuartonduaga. I am 21 years old and this is my final oral report about the course Teaching Practice 1, which one in charge of the teacher Roger Steve Loaiza. Well, as I mentioned, I was teaching in this course and in this case I was teaching to the 5th grade at Institución Educativa Bello Horizonte and I'm going to talk about my experience during this process. First, I want to mention these four important features: class participation, parents and students, practice teacher, cooperative teacher. Those are some aspects that were relevant during this teaching process. First, class participation was very active since the beginning when I introduced myself and I asked for students and parents to introduce themselves, and they wrote a paragraph where they tell all their likes, dislikes, hobbies, habits, and maybe issues that we would have during the process, like internet connection, or they live in rural places, or so on. Parents and students. As mentioned during the teaching process, this is a process that must be together between teachers, students, parents, school, and in this case, university. For parents and students, their relationship was very close and they were together, and I consider that it achieved the goal to the development of the learning guides. My practice teacher, he offered all the necessary to begin to develop, or maybe not to develop, to organize the learning guide where the students were going to work in. First, he offers out the opportunity to do lesson plans. Then we changed it in order to the circumstances that we are living in virtual classes to learning guides. And he provided an expert that was the teacher Rico, who taught us about how to develop a fruitful learning guide. On the other hand, we can locate the cooperative teacher, who was a very good person, not only as a person but also as a teacher. He was a very cooperative, good teacher, and he helped me things I consider necessary. He also answered questions that were very, very important. He provided me the list of students, numbers of students. Maybe I like the manner how he introduced me into the classroom because we were talking about the grades from the second period, and I was there and I could realize which were the students who really like to work and who I must take a better approach from them. Assessment. How did I assess my student? First, I took into account the social emotional competence, which was a requirement from the main teacher of this school. And then, as advice from my cooperative teacher, he told me that I should take into account the punctuality in order to develop of the delivering of the learning guides. Then was the quality of the development of the learning guides, which was not a problem for my students. I consider they did it correctly, most of them, and the one which not, I did a feedback, and that was enough to correct them and to clarify the topics. Well, these were the topics I worked with. I'm going to show you the method I used to teach them, the resource, and the topics. First, professions, much and many, some and any, there is and there are were the topics I worked with them. Fashions, I took a video from YouTube. Then, for Machine Mania, I did my own video. I record this and send to the WhatsApp group. Some many, I use also YouTube and Facebook in order to enrich their knowledge and clarify some questions that they would have to solve the learning guides. The feedback was the main method, teaching method I used to work with them in order to clarify questions. Even parents used to call me, not only students. Most parents told me that they had some doubts in order to this subject, in order to this topic, and so on. Those, wherever I be, wherever the hour was, I answered, and they told me all what they wanted related to the course. I want to take advantage of these topics to say that if I had had not the opportunity to do the teaching practice, I won't face the reality that I'm going to find when I be a teacher. There are going to be some students that they are going to be so lost despite 2 or 3 weeks the learning guide was sent, and they will ask once and twice and 3 times, not only students but also teachers, and we must be in the attention to solve their questions. Also, the necessities or needs the students could have during this process, we must take into account that there are some issues that they are not in our hands, and we as teachers must face them and give a solution for the correct development of the classes. That's why I think made to make the teaching practice was absolutely necessary. Absolutely necessary. In this case, this is the elementary school, and I did my best to finish this process. Rule for virtual classes. Despite we are not in a classroom, I consider there is that there rules for virtual classes. Despite we are not in a classroom, I consider there must be some rules in order to have a correct course. The ones I ask for my students is that in the moment that they deliver the learning guides, they please write the full name, the grade, and the annex they send in order to have an organization of the files to present my final report. Then I made longer the time to attend necessities or duties from parents or students, because I know that there are some parents who work or study all the day, and the only space that they will have to solve the activities is at night. So that's why I took a bit of the night to attend them. But on weekends we didn't talk because we realized that it was a space to share family. The use of foreign language in my course was based on the activities and the videos I gave them as resource. So it was only the time that I gave them the feedback. I mean, one by one. So I didn't use my foreign language in the group of WhatsApp where the teachers and the other parents, but I did one by one in their chat, which I consider was a better method to the learning process. My conclusion, I want to be in the social emotional competence. That it was my first time working with this kind of competence, and I consider this is a very elementary in order to make the student feel comfortable of the learning process. because they won't regret or they won't have frustration in order to catch ideas, sentences, topics, and they will feel very comfortable and learn easily. Suggestions for the course. First, I need to take into account that we are not in our normal context. I mean, we are teaching in virtual classes. We are not in a classroom. Despite, I would like that my teacher, my practicing teacher, would be like more attend to the courses or weeks than we will have during the course, because sometimes I felt alone, and that was necessary to be alone to face the needs of the course. But there were some times that I didn't know what to do, and I first looked for my cooperative teacher, but I expected to have more company about the practice teacher. Anyway, we all did our best, and I think that it is reflected in the results. Those are some activities that my students developed in their class, in their notebooks, and they were handmade, very well developed, very well organized. That's the reason because they had very good results, in this case, grades. And just I want to mention professions, machine many, there is and there are, and so on. That was my presentation, my final oral report.